Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Monarchy podcast. Today we have Mr. Alex Alonso. He is the owner of Mr. Alex TATE, which we will ask and clarify what that means and where it came from. He's also the owner of an award-winning studio, or is that still active?
So the business is an award-winning studio.
The business itself.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, exactly.
Oh, this Mr. Alex
TATE Design Studio.
Gotcha. Okay. See, that's why I wanted to clarify at the beginning.
She wouldn't let you. It's her fault.
What was a studio?
Well, we want to clarify for everybody else too.
And also, he's a winner of Bravo's Best Room Wins. But without further ado, I'll let Mr. Alonso here give an introduction.
How formal. So yes. So my name is Alex Alonso. No need for the Mr. unless that's the way you do it in the monarchy here. So about me and about the studio, if you will. Yeah, so we're a studio. We've been around for about 5 years now. And I am raised here in Miami and had a career prior to this in entertainment and media, and had always been doing design on the side. And so upon moving back to Miami, decided it was about time. It's a little bit of now or never. And decided to start my own design studio. And I'll beat you to the punch. The reason we named it Mr. Alex TATE Design is because a lot of studios tend to have the name of the designer in the name. And I always felt that it was probably a little bit more of a collaborative environment, or it could set the tone for a more collaborative environment with the clients if we didn't name it after me. Because I felt like we could all kind of invest in who this Mr. Alex TATE person is, right? So it could be you, it could be you. And instead, it wasn't my singular vision, but it was a collective vision for the design of the space as we brought together. So I felt that if we kind of create this person that doesn't really exist, it gives us a lot of creative liberty and a kind of creative license to be able to kind of infuse into that space a little bit more of that. And I think it's also sometimes a little bit overwhelming or daunting, I think, for certain clients to just be like, oh, it's got to be your point of view. It's got to be your design. There's no room for wiggle. Yeah. And I kind of didn't like that about it. There are certain things about the industry that I kind of felt needed to be a little bit more casual while still being professional and still being very tailored. So, and the reason the name came about, so we wanted Mr. and Alex because we also, as we were looking at design as an industry overall, very few design studios really kind of speak to a more male perspective or male clientele. And whereas we don't necessarily design just for men or for guys, we really felt that we wanted it to be a space where guys would feel very included in that conversation. Because design and guys, it's like, oh, guys don't talk about design. I'm like, yeah, but you do care because you care about what you put on, what shoes you put on, what car you drive. So it's very much a part of your overall aesthetic and your brand as an individual. So we felt that if we could add a little bit of the whimsy of the Mr. To it, it kind of made it a little bit more formal, but at the same time, we kept everything very, very short and succinct. And then TATE actually comes from the Tate Modern in London. And it's always been a huge source of inspiration for us every time we go there, and just the way that they approach art and the way that they approach curation and the way that they approach what it means for something to be artistic. And we've always loved the dialogue that they have as a museum, if you will. And so we kind of adopted that because we've always felt very inspired with that every time we went there.
Okay, that's a very interesting and meaningful company name.
We've thought of everything.
Okay, so you said you wanted to be, you didn't name it after you per se because you just wanted to be a little more open as far as input from other people. You have a team, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. I get what you're saying. I guess people would feel more, it has more of an inclusive feel where even though that person doesn't own the company, they feel like they're part of it, right?
Right. Yeah.
I got you there. You mentioned that what you do is typically associated with mostly with men.
We have a lot of male clients
Really?
For sure. Yeah. So, and it could be single men, professional, young guys, older, you name it. But I think it wasn't done unintentionally. Okay. Intentionally. Again, we thought it was an interesting approach to the industry to have conversation with men about design, because it's not something that's you don't typically think design in guys, even though there are a lot of very successful architects and who happen to be men.
Yeah.
And so we felt that there's nothing wrong with guys talking about design.
Yeah.
And so many men are very interested in the way that they look, the way that they present their brand, if you will, right? Like I was mentioning, your watch, your car, your shoes. It's very much a very brand sort of. You start to identify who you really are, and we felt that we had come across this many, many times, right? Where guys are very successful at work and in life. And when it comes to their house, they don't want to make any decisions because they are afraid for that to not be as successful at what they've done outside the house.
Gotcha.
And so we felt that, we've seen this time and time and time again. Very successful individuals. They were either CEOs or presidents of their companies, and they had great style in the office, and they knew exactly what they wanted in the boardroom. But when it came time through their dining room, they were just like, "I'm going to leave it white because I would rather not fail at this because I'm successful everywhere else." Yeah. And so you end up coming to these individuals' homes, and they're just these white boxes. You're like, how is this possible? So we felt that there was an interesting conversation to be had there. And we felt that if we could kind of make it a little bit more approachable towards men, it created a very different dynamic from a design perspective. And at the same time, you'd be surprised, but a lot of women will call us and say, a lot of design tends to be frilly, or it tends to be a little bit more this way. We want a bit of a balance to it. And so I think that they're either designing or helping their boyfriends design for themselves or their husbands for their spaces or even together. So I would say that for the most part, about 70% of our clients tend to be men. And the balance, are women or couples or married couples and things like that. So it's not exclusively done that way, but we just kind of felt it was a very interesting approach to design.
Is it safe to say that that your clients, most of them are higher end clients or people that can, have the means to?
Oh, geez. We're going to play like that, right? Okay. So, the reality is, at the end of the day, and I'll backtrack. I'll go into a bit of a diatribe. At the end of the day, it's a business, right? And as much and as wonderful it is to look at Pinterest boards and talk about beautiful things, and tag and love things on Instagram and all that good stuff, it is a business, and it is work that our team is putting together, design and concepting and researching. And I think that's part of it too. A lot of people think that you're basically just picking out pretty things from the internet or from pretty stores, and people have unlimited budget. At the end of the day, the reality is everyone has a budget. Even if they tell you they don't have a budget, trust me, they have a budget. After 7 months of spending money, you have a budget. You're like, we're done. So is it exclusively for higher end? No, not necessarily. And I think every studio is different. There are a lot of studios that offer e-design. So if you're working remotely or if you don't have big budgets, you can find someone who provides e-design as a service, and they can do it for you online, and they can give you mood boards and things that kind of, you give them a little bit of information of what you want to try to accomplish, and then they help you with that. Our studio is a little bit different in that we're a full service. So you call us, you have a space, whether it's a room, it's a whole house, it's a condo, it's an office building, whatever the case may be, and you're not quite sure. You give us, you talk to us about what sort of vibe, what's your aesthetic, what you want to try to accomplish in the space, and then we'll come back together as a team and we'll look through and dissect and put together design plans for you. So it is a business that requires a lot of time, and a lot of people don't realize that the details matter. Yeah. And whether that sofa is going to fit in that particular space or that piece of art is going to fit there or not, it takes time, and it's constantly going back, and it's a very high touch industry is what I always like to say. Clients expect that when they've hired you for the service, that, you're going to be available, that you're going to answer questions, and that things aren't going to go wrong. Yeah. And you guys work, obviously with the home industry and real estate and contractors and builders and all this stuff. Everything always goes wrong. Like there's nothing perfect in a remodel or in anything that you're doing. So that it creates a lot of stress, right? So that unfortunately is time that someone has to pay for. Yeah. I mean, that's just a reality of it. I mean, it is a business. So it is time. It is time that's spent not only designing, but executing. And I think nothing kills really good design quicker than poor execution. So you may have done a really good job of landing that client, big or small, whatever that budget is for you. And the moment it starts to switch to execution, that you're implementing those designs, if it doesn't go, you're dead. It kills it, right? Because the relationship is shot. The overall design is just not going to look the same way. So there's a lot of things that can go into it. So
sorry to
Yeah.
jump in here, but do you feel that as a designer, you have to kind of be able to interpret what the client wants, or through research, are you able to figure out more or less?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I think there are different types of designers, right? I was not professionally trained in that regard, where I've been doing design for 20 or 30 years. I'd argue to say that I'm obviously pretty self-taught. And at the end of the day, really good design is made up of a lot of different things. It's made up, obviously, of whether that space works functionally, right? Because you may have a really beautiful room, but it's just like, great, I can't open those doors. Those cabinets look gorgeous, but I can't even sit there. And then at the same time, you've got the functional side, but then you've got the aesthetic quality of it.
Yeah.
And this is probably the trickiest thing because design is so subjective. So what's great for someone is hideous for another person. So at the end of the day, it's a balance. And so I find that I'm a little bit more of a left brain, right brain sort of a designer. Like I'm constantly trying to balance the functional side of things with the artistic and the aesthetic value of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to work for the client, because many times you fall in love with something, but if it doesn't work for the client, then it just doesn't work. So as beautiful and as celebrated as that design may be with other people or commercially or however commercial it is, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? And I think that's probably the hardest part. So for us, it's a lot about spending a lot of time with the clients, which is why I say it's very high touch, because we're constantly talking to the client. We're constantly asking about things, whether it's through text, whether it's through pin boards, whether it's through like anything, you name it. We're constantly talking about things, whether it's shows or TV. We're getting nuggets of what we think their personalities are about, right? And that's the hardest thing. If I tell you, okay, what do you like? What's your style? You're not going to know. I mean,
yeah, that's what I was wondering. Do people know what their style is, or do you have to help them figure out their style?
Some people are very, very good at it, right? Some people are just like, I know that I like this, and I know that I don't like this.
Yeah.
Right. The hardest part is when you're a client who loves everything, because guess what? I love everything. Right. I'm a horrible person at making like just finite decisions on just kind of like yes. But at the end of the day, I realize that these are temporary things. Right. I mean, as beautiful, they can be changed at any moment in time. Right. Paint is paint. Wallpaper is wallpaper. All these things are great. They may cost money, but at the end of the day, nothing is permanent. Right. When you think about it that way, you kind of have to approach it with the clients that it's like, we're trying this out. If it doesn't work, we'll change it. It's perfectly fine. Gotcha. So some people know exactly what they want. Some people don't know what they want at all. And some people, which is who we love to talk to the most, are people who are just kind of like, we just love great design. Go at it.
Just do whatever you want.
do what you think is right for the space. Yeah. We want something different. We want something that feels, obviously we want them to feel like them, right? Because it's not just, it's not a showcase room, that it's in their house, but it's got to reflect their personality and who they are. Yeah. So,
do you go from the moment that the client brings you in and you get the budget and you guys are ready to go? Do you, from there to buying the furniture for the client, bringing it to the home?
Yeah.
And if a painting is required, is that something that you guys...
Like, can you walk us through that process from like beginning to end, what it's like?
You're going to make me live it again. I will, so before I even answer that, I'll say that many people don't realize the amount of time and energy it goes into actually delivering a space that looks wonderful. Everything you see on TV is an absolute lie. It takes so much more than that, right? And so I would say that from the moment that a client calls us, they'll say, for example, we got a call 2 weeks ago. Client saying, I just bought a house. We're renting someplace now. We saw your website. We kind of like your vibe because it's not the typical thing. It looks a little bit different. It's eclectic. It's transitional. It's fun with color. You're not afraid of pattern. All this, whatever. Cool. So we've gotten to that point where we've identified that we can match, right? We'll meet with them. We'll see the space. We put together.
So your first consult is at the space that you're gonna see,
always.
or at the studio?
No, you jump right into it. You go to the space. Yeah. Okay. There's no reason for them to see like our place. I want to see where them. I want to see how they react to their space, right? And so we'll meet them at their home or office or wherever it is that we're designing, and we start going through it. We let them talk, right? The first meeting is all about letting that person tell you about the space, because you learn a lot about how someone walks you through the space, what they want to talk about and what they don't want to talk about. And so you have to be a really good listener, and you have to really, really kind of look at their body cues, because they may avoid this completely, and you're like, that's a really important thing. Why are we not talking about that over there? You know, and so you have to bring them back to that. So first of all, you let them talk because people love to talk. I love to talk. I talk to myself all the time, but you let them talk because it's important, and then you get a lot from it. And then from that point, we obviously will put together a proposal and say, like, this is what we're thinking. Okay, we're not necessarily sharing design. We're talking about, okay, we've had a conversation about what you want to do in the space. These spaces in particular. You mentioned you like tropical. You mentioned you like neoclassical. You mentioned you like mid-century modern. Great. What we really think is a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and a little bit of this. That's what we kind of think. Are we cool? Are we on the same page? We also, in that proposal, start talking to them about what we think their proposed budget should be. Some clients have a budget, and some clients don't have a budget. We love it when clients have a budget because they know how to make decisions. But some clients don't know where to start because they're like, I've never done this before, so I don't really know where to go. So all that goes into the proposal. Right, timeline, budgets, and overall degloss of what we think the space aesthetic could be. Is it mid-century modern meets Swedish, bohemian, African chic? Who cares?
And it could be, from one room to a whole house. It could be a whole house. Any part.
Exactly, okay. Yep. And then from there, obviously we include in there what our fees are going to be and what we think the project is going to take. It's a 6 to 8 month project. It could be a 24-month project, whatever it may be, whatever. And again, that's our best guess at this point. It depends on how much construction is needed, if the product or the furniture that we're ordering is, 3 months lead time, 4 months lead time, how special it is, how not. And then, once they approve it, we start working on the design. At that point, the train is out of the station and we are working on designs. We're, demoing whatever needs to be built, and we're moving fast on it.
Okay. So you work with demo and reconstruction.
Yeah.
It's not just designing, painting, decorating.
No.
It's
So here's the thing. So if you don't, I learned this in entertainment. If you don't control your distribution, right, you don't control your brand and your product. So by that same token, if I don't control who or how the execution gets implemented, how that design becomes a reality, I can't control my brand. And I think it's really important because I may give you a really beautiful design and pass it off, and I can hope that the client will execute it correctly. But the reality is they may not, because they don't either have the resources, the contacts to do it, or they're relying on someone else to do it. And so at some point, it may turn out pretty crappy, and they're like, "Oh, that was terrible. That was a terrible waste of money. We paid this we paid this jerk a whole ton of money. Beep. We paid this guy a ton of money, and the studio, and they talked a good game, but look, it looks terrible. Oh my god, we can't do that. It's a horrible experience for the client."
So that's an option, though. The clients have an option that you design something and not, so you don't give them the option.
No,
if you design it, you're executing it.
Yes, if we design, we're buying, we're executing, and we're implementing.
Okay.
That's the way it is.
Yeah.
We're not flexible on it. We don't do that. That's just not our studio. And some studios will, and that's perfectly fine. It's just not our model. And I think that we feel that it is better for the client to guide them through the process, because it's a very, very exhaustive process, but at the same time, it could also be a very stressful process. And they've got enough to deal with already, that they're tracking down contractors, they're tracking down painters, they're tracking down, carpenters. So we feel like it should really be as turnkey as possible. The client has to be happy at the end of the day, and you're going to get difficult clients. You're going to decide whether you want those clients or not. But at the end of the day, the client is going to be your biggest ambassador at the end. And so if you don't do it right, if they're not happy, it's kind of a reflection of you. There's no reason it shouldn't be. Yeah. Right? Yeah. I mean, everyone wants a good experience because, again, design is fun, remember? Like, we're just pinning. And so you want it to be a really good experience. And so as hard as it is, it takes a lot of time to manage clients.
If somebody's building a house, would they bring you in after the house has been built? Or do you suggest somebody bringing you in as they build the house?
Good question. We've done it either way. Truthfully, we've had clients who are looking to buy a house. We actually have a client now who's in New York, and he had seen some of the work that we did on another house. And he was looking to buy a house on the same street. And he contacted us and he said, "I love what you did with that house. I'm thinking of buying a house across the street that's done by the similar architect. This is a 1930s house on Miami Beach. We'd love to chat with you to see kind of like what your thoughts are." So we've gone a couple of weeks chatting. Like, his realtor will call me. We'll go see houses together. And the client's like, "I don't want to buy the house unless you think it's a really good one."
Yeah.
And so in that particular case, we're helping him find the house. In other clients, they bought the house. They know they're going to gut it. And the design is guiding what is that new house going to be. So, and then we've had clients who call us after the fact. "Hey, we just bought a house. We know it's a bit of a teardown. Hopefully we can do something cool with it." Yeah. And so we come in after they've already purchased the house. So we've kind of done it a million ways,
Do you guys charge a fee for that initial walkthrough?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What's the fee, if you don't mind me asking?
No, so we charge $250.
Okay.
And so we do that for several reasons. Okay. You'll get a lot of calls. You'll get a lot of cold calls about people saying, "Oh, I'm curious about this and that. I'm curious." Because everyone's curious about how much it costs to work with a designer.
Yeah.
Right. The reality is, at least for our studio, there's no set price. Right. And some people charge by the hour. Some people charge overall. Like, if for the whole project, this is our fee.
Yeah.
Some people charge on retainer. So there's a million different ways of doing it. So we like to always charge for the initial consultation because it is work. It's all about work. And if you don't appreciate the design, I don't think that you're really the right client for us.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't care if your budget is 50 or 500,000. If your budget is 10 or if it's like, 2 million. If you don't appreciate it, you don't appreciate it. So if you have an issue paying for the consultation fee of someone professionally coming out, spending time putting a 30-page proposal, which is what we do. Yeah. It's pretty detailed. We're spending about an hour and a half with you. It takes about 3 to 4 days to put the proposal together. If you don't think that that's of value when you've got a roadmap, then it's probably not the best relationship. And so we think that that's fair, right?
I think a lot of people don't realize how much time goes into actually picking out pieces and figuring out, how you're going to set up your home, let's say.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that they may not appreciate or value the work that you do.
Well, and again, and I completely respect the fact that it's an industry that is insanely archaic. There's so many things about this industry that you're just like, what year is it? Like, what do you mean? And you kind of, coming from entertainment where things can move so quickly and so fast, and there's so many layers, you just don't understand how and why, right? And so when you talk to clients, it is a huge education process, right? Some of them have worked with designers, but the majority of the people not. Listen, I'm well aware that this is an industry that only like 0.5% of the global population will ever have anything to do with, right? Yeah. I mean, and I don't want to say that these are like top tier problems, but at the end of the day, that's the reality. Like, it's a very different approach. That's not to say that we don't do projects that go below a certain level, that we only do high-end projects. It's less about money, and the conversation needs to be less about money.
Yeah.
Right. And it needs to be more about what the end product is and what the design. And I've always felt like the moment you start a conversation talking about money, it's not a conversation I want to have. Is money part of it? Absolutely. These clients don't need us to help them spend their money. They know how to spend money. Everyone knows how to spend money, right? We're here to help you spend money wisely and smartly.
And time. I think the factor is, one of the most important.
Yeah.
That's something that you guys are taking in, and the client doesn't have to worry. All they have to do is pay, but they get to focus their time into something else, into their business or whatever it may be.
Absolutely.
Which is making the money to pay for that.
Absolutely.
They can use that time to make more money.
Listen, it's like with everything. Like there are certain things that I feel very comfortable doing and some things that I don't, right? Like I can tell you, I am probably not going to be, like there are certain things that I will do on my own, but some things I won't, and I would hire someone to do it, right? Whether I'm rich or whether I'm poor, whether in between, like that's just the reality of it. So it's all about knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. And I would say that the best clients we have are not necessarily the ones who have worked with designers before in the past, because the reality is once you find a designer you like, you tend to stick with that designer, unless you really are up for a change, right? So really for me, it's a little bit more of just like when you find a designer that you like, you'll continue to work with them, but it's okay to not continue to work with them because you may want to change, you may want to do something completely different. So, it really depends. It really depends on the client. And some clients, our best clients are the ones that really just love design, and they love the stories behind why things are this way. Like, why is that table, that one? And why is it this one? And what's that piece of art? And like, there's a story that's being told.
They have to appreciate those things.
You have to appreciate it. And you have to be interested.
If not, they won't see the value in it. If they
won't see the value of it. Right. And that's not to say, listen, everyone's home should be beautiful and everyone should have a beautiful home that they live in. And that's why I'm saying it's very subjective, right? What you think is great may not be the same as what you think is great. And your spaces will look very different, if left, to your own devices. So for us, it's really more about making sure that we can help you, understand what that story is that you want to tell in that space. Yeah.
Yuli, have you ever thought about hiring a designer?
No, but I was thinking, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has looked at a Pinterest picture, and then you go to Home Goods and pick up a bunch of stuff, and you're like, okay, this looks nothing like this Pinterest picture. No, I've never thought about it, but I may in the future. Oh, sorry.
So that's really interesting. So I'm glad you brought that up because there's a difference, right? There's a difference between editorial and functional. right? A lot of people fall in love with what they see on Pinterest, what they see on Instagram, what they see in Elle Decor, what they see in Architectural Digest. Listen, those houses, yes, those houses look like that, but for the most part, nobody lives like that.
Yeah.
Or it's probably a studio that they set up for her picture.
Yeah, the images they're orchestrated, they're set up, they're staged in a certain way to convey a certain look. So there's an editorial look, right? And then then there's the real life, look. All these celebrities, I guarantee you, they still have like, their Chefware ID out on the on the counter and stuff like that. Like, nobody lives with like completely empty free counters like that. I mean, they might, but for the most part, they really don't. So, and that's the interesting thing. A lot of people want what they see there, but they don't realize that it requires a lifestyle change. A lot of clients are like, oh, I really love that minimalist modern look. I'm like, great. Well, you've got 4 kids and you don't know how to teach them to put their toys back in their room. So I don't think that's ever going to happen, right? So you need to know that that's kind of what comes with living like that. So it is a bit of a lifestyle change also, right? What you see in magazines. So it's less about coveting what you see and adopting from that what you think is right for you. And I think that's the most interesting part about when you talk to clients, is like you need to pull out, what is it that you like about that room? Is it the color? Is it the use of space? Is it the lighting? Is it, the large windows? A million things.
I can definitely live at a place like the ones that you see in the magazines.
Yeah.
But I have 2 kids, a dog, a wife.
Yep.
So that would never happen.
I used to live like that until I had a kid.
Yeah. It requires a lot of diligence. I mean, again, it's a lifestyle change, and but it's okay. So some people want to live that way. Some people don't. It's okay.
Alex,
some people don't have a choice.
Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you. Let's switch gears a little bit and get to know you a little better.
Sure.
So I see here that you were born in Cuba.
I was.
At what age did you come here, if you don't mind me asking?
I was, those are not personal questions at all. I was 2.5 years old when I left. It was 1980. I left, we went through Spain, and we were there for 6 months, and then lived here ever since till I went away to college.
Was it always the goal to come to the United States, or did you guys first try it out there? It didn't really work. Your parents, I mean?
Yeah, I wasn't part of the decision-making process, but I do believe it was the goal to come here. Yeah, we had some family here, not a lot, but we had some family here.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
What part of Cuba was it?
Havana.
Havana?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm from Cuba as well, and she is too, but she's from El Campo. Right? No?
My dad is from
Pinar
del Rio. My mom is from Havana.
There was a little bit of shade in what he just said. So
I can tell.
Actually, you're not. Sorry, because I always make this mistake.
Wow.
She was born in Venezuela.
I was born in Venezuela. As your parents, my parents fled Cuba to come here, but during that transitional period, they had me there, and then I came here when I was 1.
Got it. You were way off. That was terrible.
And she's told me 100 times.
Wow. Picture. Maybe he's better with
pictures. Maybe.
We can do something.
But anyway, sorry. Have you been back to Cuba? Sorry, I was going to ask you before he interrupted me.
My parents have.
Back?
Yeah,
okay.
I haven't.
So you're not interested in...
Yeah, no, for sure. I just never find the time. It's the reality. It's just like, I know that's a cop-out answer, but it's true. Like, I just kind of like, it's like, I'd love to.
There's so many other places in the world.
Yeah, well, I was like, I kind of want like my AC, whatever. Like, I don't want to like whatever. I mean, it's cool. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but I don't know. I've just my parents have gone several times, and I've just kind of felt like I could have jumped on one of those trips, but I just kind of felt like it's not the right time. When you feel it, I guess.
Yeah.
And you still have family over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom and my dad both have family. Yeah, they still have some family.
Okay. So aside from that, I read you've lived coast to coast. So we talked about you studied in Chicago, lived in LA, lived in Miami. Have you lived in any other cities in the U.S. or?
No. I lived in Spain. I did a year abroad.
Okay.
I was in Seville, in Spain, and truthfully, I was at college. I could have appreciated it more, but I didn't. I'm like, oh my God, in Seville, this kind of sucks. All my friends were like in Paris and London. It's like, Paris and London is so cool. And now I'm just kind of like, Seville was really cool. Ay, caramba. But it was beautiful. It was lovely. There we go. This is terrible.
Don't worry. We'll
okay. But anyways, so I and now that I look back on it, I was like, that was a great experience. And you always kick yourself. It's like, I should have taken more advantage of that. But I still enjoyed it. But I'm just saying, like, I have a fonder appreciation for it the older that I get, that I was able to do that. And I realized how fortunate I was to be able to do that, because a lot of people don't, who would have liked to have studied in Spain for a little bit. But again, it was a wonderful experience. But places I've lived, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Miami. Yeah.
Any favorites amongst those 3?
LA.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know about now, but I absolutely loved LA. I loved living there. I thought it was like Miami without the humidity and mountains, which was wonderful. Yeah. You drive everywhere, you have the beach, but then you also have desert and you have mountains and
earthquakes.
Absolutely. You need a natural disaster anywhere you live. That's all I got to say.
I'll take the hurricanes over the earthquakes.
It's only a slight tremble. It kind of keeps shaking. It's cool.
You've been through one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nothing major. I mean, it's weird, right? So it feels like a rocking, and you're just there's a certain sense of you just feel completely out of balance, like someone's shaking you from inside. It's the weirdest feeling I've ever, the weirdest thing. Wow. And you just kind of feel like something is rocking, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, am I just having like a low blood sugar day? Like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden you see things moving, you're just like, oh snap, like something is happening, and people are just like, what the? And you're just like, okay, got it. Run for like the door frames, right? But for the most part, it comes and it goes quickly. Yeah. Unless it's a really bad one and then it's just rolling for a while. But it's a very uncomfortable feeling that you're just rocking and you don't understand why you're rocking. You're like, wow, this is kind of weird.
It's like being on a ship, I guess. I don't know.
A little bit, yeah.
Kind of like
yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's kind of uncomfortable, but it comes and goes quickly, which is good if you're lucky.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't been through one of those, but.
I mean, it's not enviable. I mean, it's not something like, oh my God, I wish I could go through a hurricane or like an earthquake. Like nobody wants to go through a natural disaster, but when you do, you never forget what that feeling is like. Yeah. It's one of those things. So. Yeah,
I just prefer the hurricanes because there's at least some sort of warning.
Yeah,
and they're more profitable for us. So
absolutely,
we'll take the hurricanes.
You're doing the commercials this time, or
no, just
listen. You're always selling. You should never stop selling. Yeah. I don't know what memo you got. She's on it.
Aside from the cities you've lived in and Seville for your summer
year abroad
a year abroad.
Yeah.
I read you've traveled to like multiple continents and that's a source of inspiration for your designs. Can you tell us about like what are your favorite places that you've visited or have inspired you?
And I will say like my parents did a lot of things right, and I will give them a lot of credit for that. And I will say that one of the things that they always taught us was to travel and to see the world as much as you can, whether you can do it on a shoestring budget or where you can posh it out. Go out there and travel and see the world and learn and talk to people and eat different foods and experience different things. And when I was young, when I was 8 years old, actually, my parents were really proud because they had been able to save all this money to take us to Spain and France for like a few weeks. And I will never forget the first time I went to France and Paris, and you're just like, your mind is just like, your mind has exploded. And then you go to like Versailles and you see like this opulence and these castles, and you don't necessarily know what you're seeing, but it has an indelible, imprint on the way you see things. And ever since then, I kind of just felt like I have this bug where I need to travel and see things. And so
we have a similar bug.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's one of those things where it's an experience unlike any other, right? Because there are moments where you can feel very much a part of that culture and that community. Like when you go to Spain, you can feel like, oh, hey, there's a certain camaraderie if you're Cuban that you kind of, and your parents may be Cuban or Spanish and things like that. But sometimes you'll go to other places and you don't quite know what it is about it, but you're immediately entranced with it. Like the first time I went to China, I was like, I have absolutely zero connection to the Chinese culture, but there's something about this lost in translation moment where you don't even know where to go or what to do, but there's just something so prophetically amazing about that, right? You're just there and you're just like, I could get lost here and in 3 days figure out like, oh, that's where I go there. And you're up for that adventure. And I love that. I love that sense of discovery. And I think that's what travel always does for me, is that sense of discovery. And I think I always like to bring that back to design because design is about discovery. You're constantly discovering how different things can go together, colors and things and objects and pieces that you never thought could. And somehow it makes sense. And so I love that about being able to went to China or when I went to Korea or when I've gone to Morocco or, you're just constantly discovering all these different perspectives on what they think is interesting from a design perspective. And you bring a little bit back with you every single time. And I think there's just something kind of fun to be able to do that, and I love it. But favorite places, unlimited budget, I'd live in London in a heartbeat. I mean, the ideal scenario would be to have a place in Hawaii and during the winters and go live in London for the summer. I think it's just an insanely cosmopolitan city, so diverse. Not perfect. No city is perfect. But I will say America is amazing, and the best country on earth. And that's my plug, regardless of whether you're blue or red or whatever. But I will say that there's just something about being engulfed in something that has so much history, where you can literally talk to anyone from any different language. I mean, it's just such a huge cosmopolitan city, and I love that about it, that it's built on so many different flavors and so many different cultures and and identities. I really love that about it. The diversity is insane. So London is up there on top of my list. Yeah.
Have you been
to London? Yes.
to London? Yeah.
It's fabulous, isn't it?
It wasn't my favorite, so but I don't want to rain on your
Hearsay.
parade. So
Drop the mic.
Did you go with your kids? With your
no,
daughter?
it was before.
What happened? Why didn't you like it? I want to know.
To me, it felt like New York City. I don't know.
How dare you?
I mean, then I went to like Paris. And,
Did you like Paris?
I did. I like Paris.
It's gorgeous,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah. It was
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah. I would just say, I think aesthetically and visually, Paris is hands down most beautiful city. Like architecturally, art, design, like anything. Their streetlights, I don't even know why, but their streetlights make every dirty French city street look beautiful.
Their yellow lighting. I mean,
Yeah,
Italy's my
gorgeous.
favorite. I think Italy is definitely my favorite, hands down. But
Right.
I didn't get that vibe from London. But
Really?
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But again, but that's good. It meant something to you.
Yeah.
And Italy means something even more. So, I mean, that's fantastic.
Do you ever bring back any pieces? Sorry, because I know you said you bring back a
All the
little bit
time.
of inspiration with you, but do you actually bring like pieces?
Absolutely. Yeah. Every time we go somewhere, it's like Marco Polo. Like we take empty bags to bring stuff back. I know that sounds silly and stupid, but what we do, like literally we'll take like 3 or 4 bags just empty of just like stuff like, because you get like sticky fingers, like I want that. And the reality is in some places, like it's, you can bring a lot of stuff cheaply rather than paying for someone here who's already brought it over and things like that. So, I mean, we're not bringing furniture over, but you bring art back, you bring pieces, and you bring things that are a little bit, not tchotchkes. I mean, everyone buys tchotchkes, I guess. Everyone buys like little souvenirs, but you bring something that has a little bit more value to you. And that spoke to you. So so we bring a ton of stuff back always when we can.
Is it things? Are those things that you will eventually sell or put as part of your design?
I'm horrible at like actually getting rid of stuff. So I'm secretly a hoarder, and so I don't know what it is. Like maybe it's because like I'm an immigrant, and so like every little thing that I have is precious to me. But I've learned over the years that I've learned to curate. So I think about, I'm like, I want that. I'm like, but do I really want that? And does it really make sense? And I'll look for the right thing, right? But I don't necessarily sell things that we're not at that point where we're like buying for clients overseas. Although we have done that for some clients where we've been on a trip and we're just like, hey, we saw these great Art Deco chairs and we're going to check them out for you. And then we do buy them and we ship them back. But that's already for a client, and we know we already have a purpose, but not just to bring
you
back.
don't save it or incorporate it into a design.
Not
later,
really.
anyway.
No.
But you are a collector.
I am.
So can you tell us about that? I don't know what you collect. I just know you're a collector.
I collect anything with a story. So truly, you will tell me a story about this pencil, and I'll be like, oh my God, I love that pencil. I need like 5 of them. Let's buy it. Like, what are we doing? Like, let's talk more about the pencil. But I do. I love art. I really love things that are handmade. When we went to China, we went to this factory that they do cloisonné. And cloisonné is like a piece of metalware. So imagine you make a vase out of copper, and then they'll use like these copper little thin strips of copper, and then they'll fill it with resin. They'll glaze it, and then it becomes this beautiful pottery. It's called cloisonné. It's been around for a very long time. Well, it's a dying art. Nobody wants to do it because it feels a little bit vintagey. It feels a little bit too old, a little bit outdated. And so we went there and we're like, so sad that something so amazingly beautiful is going to be lost in a few years. So we've bought, some because we're just like, wow, this is really, really cool. It's a great story. And again, I'm a sucker for story. So art, those types of pieces, things that are handmade. Many times we'll go to certain cities where we know that they're really good with something. So for example, in London, really great silver, right? So if you can find find really good 18th, 19th century silver, you're just like, because here it'd be cost a fortune, so you can get it there better. So those types of things, there's not one particular thing. Again, I'm all over the map. But I do like the idea of collecting things to kind of put together a story.
But do you like to display them, or you just
absolutely
store them? Okay.
I have a philosophy that I don't keep things in cupboards. Everything I own has to be displayed. Otherwise, I don't want to have it. I don't want to have empty. I don't want to have full cupboards of things that nobody ever sees. That's kind of a waste to me. Like I'd rather have everything on display so I can enjoy it every day and use it. Like we've bought silver and we'll have crystal and use all that stuff every day.
Yeah.
It's not precious. Like I remember growing up, my parents like, oh no, don't sit in the living room. I'm like, why? Who else is sitting there? Like grandma who's been dead for like 10 years. So like who, why? So I have that in practice. Like you use the things you buy. So yeah, we display and we use it. It's just kind of what we do. Why not?
There's something I forgot to ask that I was going to ask, and I'm going to ask it now.
Okay.
And what is a studio when it comes to interior design? Is that what you call your office, or do you actually have a studio set up? Or
so a studio, versus an office, right? An office would be, in my interpretation at least, or at least the way we approached our business, was a studio. For us, we wanted it to be a place that could be a workshop. So we would have samples of fabrics and paint and colors and swatches, and so we could actually put the things together. It wouldn't just be. It's not a space that you would just go and do stuff online, and like just put together presentations and have a phone and just talk to people and all this sort of stuff. It is an actual working place. So a studio in the sense that we could bring the clients here, we could start putting together things on the table and fabric swatches and color and pieces of woods and things like that and marbles and stones. And it's like, okay, great, let's put it together. So it becomes more of like a functioning working environment rather than just kind of like it's a dedicated office space for calls and for presentations.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious about that. I was wondering if maybe you did like presentations there with the furniture that the client's going to actually be. Yeah.
So many times, the majority of the times, they're doing presentations at the site, right, wherever the client, the client's house or the new space or things like that. Our goal is to always spend as much time with the client in the space as possible, right? Not that we don't want clients to visit us, but they don't need to go to another office space. I mean, they want to see how something is going to live and breathe in their space. So when we're doing presentations, it's always better to just be like, and then here we want to do this, and it's about this high, and it's that. Once you're there, you see it better. So we've done presentations at the office before, and clients will come just as a weekend because it's on way to another meeting or something. But for the most part, we don't entertain clients at the office just because they would also much rather be in the space and seeing kind of what's going on, how are we using the space and things.
So that's just like your creative space. Your studio is your creative space for your staff.
Our creative space, right. We don't do, and some studios are set up differently. Some studios have a showroom, right? So they may have an actual storefront, or they may have, a larger room where they keep samples, a lot of samples of things. We don't necessarily keep a full library, if you will, of colors and wallpapers and swatches and things like that and curtain panels. And like, we enjoy rather going and visiting the individual showrooms and picking as we choose. And we do that for several reasons, right? Because at least for me, as much as it's annoying to get in a car and go someplace and do something, there's something to be said about that human interaction, that I have a connection with you as my rep who sells me that wallpaper or that fabric. Right. And you're going to tell me about that fabric and that wallpaper and why that's good. And I enjoy
and we
that.
know you love that good story.
I love a good story. And I absolutely love it when we can do that, and kind of sharing that experience. Like, hey, I'm planning this house or I'm planning this project. Show me what you've got, and then you hear them tell you about it. And they love that too, because, otherwise you just become a voice on the other side of the phone that's just kind of plugging. And it's a very personal business. And this is the thing that some folks just don't understand. It's very high touch, but it's also very, very personal. And a relationship can either kill, or make or kill a design and a project.
Or any business.
Any business, really.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that there's something to be said. Maybe I'm old school and very traditional about that, but I really do believe that when you have a connection with your salesperson or your rep or your client, they're going to fight for you. It's like, hey, listen, I'm really tight budget on this one. Like, can you guys do just a little bit? She's like, you know what? You've been really good. We have a great relationship, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let me see what I can do. It goes, it goes volumes, so you're always rooting for your client. At the end of the day, you always want them to get the best of everything. Unless they're a terrible client, at which point, like, whatever. But then you shouldn't have taken them anyways, because terrible clients, whatever. Whatever.
Do you ever turn down any clients?
Absolutely. All the time. And we have some clients that we've tried to turn away and they just keep coming back. But yeah, we have turned clients away. And it's not, so before we actually get to that level of doing doing the proposal and things like that, we provide clients with what we call our frequently asked questions, our FAQs, right? And it's a document that we've put together over years of doing this. And we're very explicit. We say there, just because you signed up for the consultation doesn't mean that we will take the project. I mean, we will still, We'll go through the rounds, and maybe the budget doesn't work out. Maybe your expectations are too high. We know what we can deliver. We know what we can't deliver, and we don't want you to be uncomfortable. We don't want to be uncomfortable. It's a long process. It's a very involved process. So the last thing we don't want it to be is not the right fit. So we have turned clients away, big project clients, big budgets, and we're just, you can smell it. You're like, this is going to be terrible. Like, this is just, the money is great, but you're like,
it's not worth it.
You're going to squeeze it out of me. Like, it's not happening. Like, no. And it's uncomfortable, and they don't want to hear it. And we had a potential client that we turned down. It went through like 3 weeks of just like back and forth. It was like, we said no. It's a hard no. And like, it was a hard no 2 days ago. It's a hard no now. Like, I don't even know. But, you have to be very, very good. I think with any business, right? You have to get really good at identifying who's the right client for you and who's not the right client. And it's not personal. It's really not, because this is a business, right? It's a transaction. There are a lot of soft skills that you need around that. You need to be obviously courteous, and you need to be respectful, and you need to be professional and all the good stuff. But at the end of the day, this is a business. We're making money. I'm not your friend. We will be friendly, and we may develop a relationship and a friendship out of this for sure, because we have a lot of clients that we truly like love, and we hang out and we'll like text each other. But that's not the expectation, is that this is a friendship. Like, this is a business, and we do things. And so I think you have to be very mindful of that, but it's a thin line to walk sometimes, with clients. But
and it's not a product, that you're selling, and here you go, and you're gone and done. It's like, you're gonna have to deal with this person, like you said, for 6, 8, 24 months. Like,
exactly.
Do you really want that person in your life for that long?
Oh, absolutely. We had a client 2 years ago. I love this guy. This guy was amazing. He had a great property, great house. And we knew we had good chemistry. We knew we vibed from a design perspective. We was just kind of like, yeah, I love that. Oh, we were like really, really good. But literally, we would be texting at 11 o'clock at night or at midnight. He's like, I just found this. What do you think? Like, my husband's like, really? Like, what's going on? Like, I thought, what do you mean? I'm just like, no, it's totally not that at all. Like, it's not. But it was constant for 6 months of that back and forth. So you have to be mindful that these have to be people you want to actually work with, because you're going to get really, really uncomfortable situations where you have to tell them, like, guess what? The budget needs to go up because of this, or this actually just happened. We didn't know once we started breaking the wall. So, so you have to have that relationship as well. And you have to be very honest. And so one of the things that we like to always tell clients is, if you're not transparent with us, we can't be transparent with you. And so if you're uncomfortable at telling us what your budget is because you think that maybe we're going to mark things up and things like, nope, here it is. We're extremely transparent. We have nothing to hide. And that's where we set the groundwork for the working relationship moving forward, which is why we say, like, yes, we're going to charge for the consultations, $250. And this is everything that we do, and this is everything that we don't do, right? If you're not cool with that, we've put everything on the table. Like, we expect you to do the same, because this could very well be 6 to 8 months or 12 months. So
I think it gives you a lot of value knowing your own value, or valuing your own time. Kind of like us. So, we'll have those clients that we have a very strict no discount policy because we know we're the best. Yep. So in the same way, when we have clients asking us for discounts, we simply have to turn them down right then and there. And sometimes even when they agree to the 20%, which is what we're capped at 20, so that's what we must charge. At that point, we have to make a determination. We already kind of know how this client is. Right. And we know what to expect from them. So do we really want to, work with that person?
Absolutely.
So yeah, I understand exactly where you're
absolutely
coming from.
And like, we, just like you, we don't discount. It's just not something that we do. And I don't know. It's just one of the things that we just don't believe in. It's not to say that it's like, take it or leave it. We'll find other ways of getting creative with the budget. Yeah. We'll say, like, hey, listen, we won't discount the design fee, right? Because truly, I don't care whether you pay $2,000 for a sofa or $30,000 for a sofa. I don't need to make money on the sofa. And this is our own studio perspective. A lot of studios are very different. Yeah. Right. So we'll say, like, I don't really care what you spend on. I care that you value the design. So I need for you to pay for the design. If you have an issue paying for the design or discounting the design, no.
Which is your services, essentially.
Which is truly the services. Yeah. And yes, the studio fee also goes towards the execution, like our team project managing and seeing that happens, right? So we don't discount any of that stuff. But we will say, it's like, well, we can help you find a cheaper sofa then. If that's really what it comes down to, is like, we'll be mindful of the budget.
Do you get clients that want to see how much you actually paid for a particular piece?
We don't actually get clients who ask us for that, but we always tell them that we're happy and ready to share it with them.
Gotcha.
So, because we do pass on the trade discount to the client. Okay. So a trade discount could range anywhere from like 5, 10, 15% at the minimum to like 30 or 40%, right? Okay. And we tell the clients, we pass those on to you. So if this costs this costs that, and you're welcome to see the receipt anytime you want. And I guarantee you, the moment you tell them that, they don't even ask. They won't ask because they trust you. And the moment you've laid it on the table, it's just like, I have nothing to hide. And in fact, we put together a binder for them with all receipts and all the things. And we're just like, here you go. Like that's not our game. Our game is to develop a relationship where you love the design and you kind of want to keep working with us. And we have clients who are buying another property and they're so like, hey, we'd love for you to help us with this. And that's ultimately what you get. This is not, at least for me, at least for our studio, this is not a volume business. I'm very well aware of that. As much as we would love to do 20 projects at one given time, it's virtually impossible for us. Right. As a studio at the size that we are at, but even still, I don't know that I necessarily need to deliver or work on 20 projects at one time. So our business model is set up on really being about quality versus quantity. And I know that's cliche, but it's true. I think it gives you a better understanding of how the client wants to spend that money because it's an investment at the end of the day. And it makes you more mindful of how you're spending their budget. So for us, we're selective about the clients we take on. And a big budget is not always going to entice you to take the budget. And sometimes it comes down to chemistry. Sometimes you just really want to work on that property with that person because you know it could be really cool.
Yeah, I don't know about the viewers, but I really want to call you over and see,
Yeah, I was like, 250 is really not that bad. Maybe we could just.
Well, I mean, I don't know why it never occurred to me. I guess because I'm kind of cheap in that sense. And I everybody likes a nice design, but it's, at least to me, is not something that's, super, super important.
Right.
But when you factor in the time, I could be saving. I mean, I don't usually do the shopping or anything like that, but even for my wife, she has a job, she does her own thing. Right. It could be something that works for us.
Yeah, and listen, it is. Some people feel. I'll be honest. Like a lot of the clients, when you go into their house, they feel that you're judging them, and it's just like, oh, you're gonna like tell me about like what I picked there and why I picked that sofa and why I picked it. Like
that's what I felt when Javier pointed it out. He's like, oh, you saw how you threw it on me? Yeah. Look at this room. I'm gonna design it. I'm like, so what?
There's absolutely nothing wrong with it.
They're pretty good.
Yeah, you did just fine.
I think it's just being educated on the subject, and that's actually the whole point of this podcast is educating people on all sorts of topics. Right. But it's being educated because like that opened up our mind to like, hey, maybe we should consult with the interior designer because your budget is your budget. And then it's just how you spend it. If you go and buy pieces here and there and then you put it all together, you don't like it, doesn't look good, maybe you could have spent a little bit more and let somebody take care of it and it would look great.
And we're also here to be a resource, right? I'd rather you call and ask us how to do something or how to put this together or, rather than you just trying it, spending all that money. It's like, I still don't like it. Because we've had clients who've just like, oh, and I went and I bought all these curtains. And my parents always say, por ahorrarte los kilos se te van los pesos, right? Like you're trying to save a penny here and then you lose like all this money there. Yeah. And that happens a lot, right? And so there's always the illusion that hiring a designer, you have to have really, really big budgets. Listen, the reality is there are a ton of designers at different price points out there. You just have to do your homework, right? And there's nothing wrong with calling 4 or 5 of them and just seeing what it's like and asking them how they work. And the reality is, it's a very traditional business. It had always been a very elitist sort of industry. It had always been for quote unquote rich people. And I think it's been democratized over the past few decades, with the advent of Pinterest and Instagram and all these influencers and things like that. So I think that every consumer, every client is so much better poised to be educated about the industry now more than ever, right? Because there's so much more transparency as that, from an industry perspective. And I feel that you could definitely call, 3 or 4 different designers, and some of them may not want to work with you. Their budgets may not be, your budget may not be big enough for them. C'est la vie, then. But for the most part, it can save you money in the long run. It can save you headache. It can help guide you in a certain direction because
Stress.
again, yeah, absolutely. And but again, it's not for everyone, and I get that. I'm well aware. Like that's okay. Like some people feel very comfortable doing it themselves, and some people have a really great eye for it.
Yeah, some people are great at it, but
absolutely, and some people just need a little bit of help and things like that. But there's a designer out there for everyone. I do firmly believe that, and I think it just takes time in finding who that one is.
Yeah. Yeah. Alex, do you know what percentage of a budget typically your fee would be? Is that something?
Come on now. So it depends. For the most part, it's about 20%.
Okay.
20% of your, at least for our studio, is about 20%. Other studios build it differently, right? Some studios will charge you by the hour, right? And say just like, this is a design. This is our fee for designing the space. Boom. And then beyond that, it's hourly at this. And there might be a markup on the furniture, right? Because they are doing all this work to putting it behind, doing all this sort of stuff, and for us, for example, it's a studio fee, whether the project takes 6 weeks or 6 months, it's the same fee. You know what I'm saying? And then we'll charge, the product handling, which is our quote unquote, if you will, markup, because if we're passing the trade discount on to you, what we do is we'll just charge an 8% off of that product, which you're still getting half of the trade discount, if you will, because the average discount is about 15%. So you're still winning, if you will. And we just do that from the standpoint of just like, it takes someone on our team a lot of time to go through, make sure it's measured right, make sure it fits in the space. If it doesn't, it needs to go back. That's a lot of hours,
Correct.
So typically for us, it's about 20% is what our fees are on the overall.
Plus 8% of the.
That's all inclusive, all in. At the end, when it's all said and done, it's about 20%
Gotcha.
with the fee, with the product handling, and all that good stuff. A very famous designer, Vicente Wolf, who's also Cuban and who is also somewhat self-taught. He's one of the Arc Digest 100. He's phenomenal. He's a really fantastic designer. I heard a podcast with him once, and he was talking about how he deals with. He's like, I keep it simple, 20% off the top, 20%. Doesn't need to be a conversation with the client. It's 20%. Of course, he'll also tell you he won't really take your call unless you've got $100,000, whether it's a bathroom or whether it's it's got to be $100,000. Yeah. But that's his business model, right? Because he's got a certain number of overhead. He needs, so his business works in that way, right? Yeah. And other designers are working more off of a retainer perspective. So they're like, our retainers are $20,000 a month, and that's what it is, or it's 15, or whatever the case may be, right? So every project is different. Every designer is different. Sometimes you price it differently, but for the most part, it tends to be at around that percentage.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have some fun questions here.
Okay. Do tell.
About insurance.
Oh, fantastic. My favorite topic. Let's go.
Okay. So when you go into homes and you see damage, do you typically recommend a public adjuster? Or would you, now that have a little bit more insight into what we do?
So I would for example, if they're buying the house, if they've lived in the house, and honestly, we just assume that that's something that they're already dealing with. But if someone who's speccing out a house because they're going to buy it and things like that, or something, for sure, yeah.
Or have you had a scenario I know you do demo, you knock on a wall and you find a pipe that's leaking, or have you run across those scenarios where homeowners had to stop and deal with an insurance process or anything like that because now they've discovered something behind the walls or something? We haven't
in that regard. Yeah, because the house has either already changed hands or something like that. But yeah, no, we haven't had to deal with that in this particular. But watch tomorrow, we probably will get someone to say, "Oh, great." No,
it's a common thing, especially in construction and demolition, that you run into issues like that.
Yeah, yeah. No, we've been pretty fortunate so far. I don't think we've necessarily had that.
And maybe it's happened. It's just for some reason, a lot of people don't have that trigger to file a claim or to realize that that's something that more than likely would be covered.
The education.
For sure.
Education, correct.
It always goes back to education, yeah.
So, but,
now I know.
I'm giving you a little bit of insight.
Yeah.
Whenever you come across something like that. And it doesn't have to be us. I mean, if it's us, of course, you're working with the best.
Why would I go for second tier?
But, any client that finds any sort of damage, for the most part, damages of that sort that are discovered and are hidden, they're covered.
Right.
So, I'm sure your clients would be extremely glad if
for
they
sure.
don't have to come out of pocket for those additional expenses.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And instead, the insurance takes care of it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, that's a good.
Let's see.
Very nice. Nicely done. Nicely done.
Well, like you mentioned earlier, we deal with homeowners as well. So you just on opposite ends.
Yeah.
You deal with homeowners making their houses pretty and fixing it up. We deal with homeowners when they have an issue, something breaks, something is destroyed. And I was just wondering, with your designs, you bring in a lot of like vintage pieces, a lot of exclusive things. Do you ever recommend, or you're aware of if homeowners get those, their homes like reappraised, or those items or that property like reappraised and insured with their policy? Or,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. It depends, right? It depends on the overall investment, I would say. Some clients, the house is, it is what it is. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm dumping all this money or whatever. I got other things to worry about. Blah, blah, make it pretty or whatever. And you're done, right? There's a lot of overhauling, and there are other clients who again are truly like fixated on the things that they've bought, and they will go back and they like our clients in DC. Like they've now put all this money into the house. It's a vintage space, and it's constantly having the water damage, and the association says that they've cleared it up, and it comes back, and I'm like, okay, we've redone that like ceiling 4 times already. That is not anything that we've done, and so we've had to tell them like, you need to go back to your insurance and like figure out what's going on here, because this keeps coming out of pocket for you. We're taking care of it, but so that's on their side.
And more importantly, review their policies. You have a coverage on there, which is for contents,
Yes.
which is, so if you have $20,000 in coverage, a contents coverage, and you just spent $100,000 putting brand new furniture and things inside your home, if something happens, there's a flood, there's a hurricane, all you're going to get is, the $20,000 or whatever that number is, if you don't raise those coverages to all this money you just put into your house.
Yeah.
It's not just about the structure.
And a lot of people don't think about that, though. I will say some clients don't. Some clients are just kind of like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I was curious. I'm sorry to know if that's something that comes up.
Some clients will. Like the smarter clients who've had, I hate to say it this way, but the clients who've had multiple properties in the past, they know.
Because they've probably been burned before.
Exactly. And so they know. And they understand that it's just kind of like, this is an investment at the end of the day. Other people who it's their first time working, they don't know. Right? They don't know that they should be doing those types of things, but that really depends.
Go ahead.
Just thinking about what you said, that they don't know, but they should.
Mm-hmm.
They should. I just wish insurance agents, which we're public adjusters, we're not agents, they were a little bit more involved when it comes to selling a policy and educating the client.
This is interesting, right? Because I've been thinking a lot about insurance. As of late, and insurance overall is a very, very, very complicated business.
It is.
It's extremely complicated. Like I've sat down like countless times trying to review my policy. I don't understand what exactly that it is that we have, but we have it, and we know we need to have it. And at some point, it's just like they keep sending you stuff, and you're just like, I guess we need all this stuff. Okay, cool, got it. We have it. Done. We're done. Because you don't want to deal with it, because it takes so much time to kind of decipher and decode everything that's in there. So it's no question that it becomes something that people don't want to deal with, right? You lean into the things that are easy for you naturally.
Correct.
But to lean into the discomfort of what you don't know is a very difficult thing to do, because you completely feel out of your element. So I can tell you that insurance, whether it's health insurance or whether it's property insurance, car insurance, it's extremely complicated. Yeah. And those are the things that just drive me crazy, because we take so much time in making things simple, and so many things are simple. I mean, maybe we should have Apple come up with like how to decloss insurance, because everything is super simple. It's just in one button. And so like that's what you need. You need something completely simplified that makes sense. But I guess there's not a business in making things very simple and transparent, because nobody makes money off of that.
Exactly.
We don't want to get
no. If it was simple, then they wouldn't be making so much money.
Right.
But
they wouldn't be trying very hard with like a gecko or with other things. About,
with all the other.
Yeah.
Until Apple comes out with the
button for insurance.
The button, exactly. Yeah. There is us.
Well, I was going to say, lucky for you and all those other confused and busy homeowners, we offer free policy reviews. So,
exactly. Homeowners policy.
Homeowners,
From all the ones that you mentioned, is one of the most important, because it protects one of your biggest assets. Mm-hmm. So that's very, very important. Free policy review, guys. I haven't gotten that many recently, and I should be getting a lot more, because the more people see this, the more educated they should become. So I look forward to more. Send them over. It's free. It's something that we do purely just to educate the consumer, and we do it gladly. So
very cool.
Alex, let's do what I could like to call the rapid fire.
Okay.
All right. Some questions.
Are you
I'll
ready?
take shelter. Yeah.
All right. What is your favorite country? I think we already discussed that. Oh, to vacation, which is
Yeah, we kind of touched on it a little bit.
I hate to say because it's a little bit controversial right now, but actually China is a pretty amazing country to visit culturally. Yeah.
gotcha.
I'm sure it is.
Okay. Wait, before we move on, when was the last time you were in China?
2013.
2013. Okay. It's
2014.
been a while.
Yeah, it's been a
It's been a
while.
while.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any pets?
I have. We had two. We lost one a couple weeks ago, but yeah, so we're down to one. Paco. He's a Chihuahua. He's about 15 years old. He's an old man. He likes to take his son every morning, and he's got like 4 teeth left.
Well, sorry to hear about your
you,
loss. Are you a morning or a night person?
I'm a morning guy.
Morning guy.
Yeah.
Early bird.
Early bird, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, there's something about getting up really, really early and just seeing like the day start that is energizing for me. Yeah, I don't know.
Easy to get out of bed.
Yeah, for the most part.
Any pet peeves?
Oh my god, a ton. We don't have enough time in this. Oh my god, my favorite one in Miami is people who will turn right or turn left and not put their signal on. I can't stand it. And then we asked a bunch of people about it, and they're just like, "Oh, because you won't let me in the lane, or you won't let me do this." I'm just like, "What?" So yeah, that's the most annoying thing. Yeah. It's just like people are living in their own bubble. Yeah.
They call that here meter el pie. That's it. Why use a blinker?
I mean, seriously.
I just traveled to Oregon a few weeks back, and everybody drives so nice over there. Nobody's on the left lane going slow. Everybody puts the blinkers. I'm like, holy crap. And then I get back and I have to drive in this freaking mess.
Because they have no place to go.
Yeah. Actually, it's really nice over there.
Actually, you should be getting out of Oregon now. But
just Portland. What motivates you?
Curiosity. I'm a naturally curious person. Like I will, like I was saying, I love discovering. I love learning about different things. And I think that element of curiosity is what's always constantly keeping me motivated to kind of do something differently. Like if you tell me like you can't do that, I'm curious to find a way how we can make it happen, you know? So curiosity for me is probably my biggest motivator.
Nice.
How can I make more money?
That's always
We're all
question,
curious
right?
about that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm curious about? And lately, more than ever?
What?
How can I get more time? But to live, right?
Oh, to extend like your life type of
Oh,
thing.
they meant like the time of day. I was like, well, wake up earlier.
Just in general. Does anybody ever wonder that? How can you just live forever?
Well, we're living longer than we were. Like
We are.
So, I mean,
But not long enough. Because by the time you get there, like the 90s, you're already like, oh,
what do you feel you need to make up time for?
not make up, just,
But see, no, there's a deeper reason for that.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that.
I think there isn't
That's the
enough
curiosity kicking in there.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason why you feel like you need more time because you haven't done certain things.
time. I think you're right.
So,
But I still have time to do them, so I don't think it's that. I just think that there's so much to do that there isn't enough time.
But you don't know if you have enough time or not.
exactly.
So just start doing them.
I am.
So the interesting thing is like, so when you think about it, it's just like, what do you want the time to do? What do you want all that time to do? Right. So if you don't have that, a lot of people say like, when I used to work in corporate, it's just like, oh, I just want to get promoted. I want to get promoted. It's like, okay, what are you going to do with that promotion when you get it? Right. And so it's like, if you don't have a clear vision of what you want to do with that, then it's going to be wasted because it'll come and you don't know what to do with it. It's like, okay, now what? Like people who win the lottery, they're like, I won the lottery. And there's like, what are you going to do with that? I don't know. Like, okay, you have to have, a vision for it. So I'm sure you do.
I do.
Too.
Yeah.
What is it?
Just to start,
Yeah.
just travel.
Okay.
That's it. Forever and ever.
Forever and ever. You just want to travel.
Whenever I get tired of one place, I go to another. And by the time that I'm like 90, we'll probably be able to go to Mars. So then, be exploring other planets.
There
and
you go.
So on and
You'll
so
be
forth.
done with this planet.
Exactly.
Wow.
No, but on the real, it's
Yeah.
just something that's. I
Gotta
wish
get more
I could
time.
extend it. We'll see what science gives us. Questions to finish up. I know we've been going on, but it's been very interesting. So, to be an interior designer, licenses. Do you need one of any sort?
So you need to, not necessarily. And every state is a little bit different. So it depends on the type of projects that you're going to do. If you're going to do commercial or hotels or hospitality and things like that, you definitely do need a license to do that sort of work. Or you need to be working with an architect or an engineer who would be submitting those plans for you.
Gotcha.
So recently, the state of Florida passed a law. They were trying to get it so that you had to be a license and you had to go through hours of mentorship and all that good stuff. And the reality is, what they worked out with Congress is basically to just register for you to be able to say, I'm a licensed real interior designer. So everyone can call themselves an interior designer and practice legally, but in order to be able to say I'm a licensed interior designer, needs the certification, needs the schooling, needs all that sort of stuff.
Gotcha. Okay. What advice would you give someone that wants to get into that field?
I would say just do it. Honestly, like don't overthink it. Talk to a lot of people, call up interior design studios, call up designers, and really just be curious about design. Because at the end of the day, design is only half the equation, right? If you can do a really, really, really good, great room and you can design a really great space, that's wonderful. No one's going to pay you for it. You have to be a really good business person as well. So that's why I'm saying, like, talk to people, talk to business owners. And it may not necessarily have to be interior design business owners, right? It could be anyone who has their own small business, because as you're starting out, you're wearing a lot of different hats, right? As you do when you start a business, as an entrepreneur. So to run a really successful interior design studio, you have to not only be able to generate really beautiful designs, you have to know how to run a really good business. And so, I always like to think of my 20 years in corporate have helped me kind of balance that piece of the business, while I've been kind of nurturing and kind of evolving my design aesthetic and what it is to be, a designer, right? Because what I thought was really cool and how I would have put together a room 10 or 15 years ago is very different than how I would have now. So I feel that I've gotten better with age, and I've been able to perfect kind of what my eye looks at, what I think is good and what is my point of view on that space. So my advice would be talk to everyone who you possibly can, be curious, take it all in, question everything, and don't be afraid to completely do exactly what it is that you think your design really is telling you to be, to do. Because that happens a lot. It's like, oh, that Miami design. Yeah, it's white, it's glossy, it's polished, it's chrome, it's this and that. And it's like, the reality is that's great. And there's nothing wrong with that. But is that really you? So it is a lot about finding your voice when it comes to design. And that comes through curiosity. That comes through really asking a lot of questions and meeting a lot of people. At least I think. But what do I know?
Just like you said, there's a designer for everybody. I'm sure there's clients for every designer as well that
absolutely
like your style.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd be surprised.
I feel like design is it's an art in a way, right? And how you could be born.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to be born with that, with a talent, like a natural born talent. I think so. Yeah.
I'm sure somebody can go to school and learn how to paint, but they won't be as good as somebody that comes natural to them, right?
Right.
Yeah. So is that do you think that applies here?
I'd like to say, at the end of the day, it's passion. If you're really passionate about something, you're going to find a way for it to really kind of make sense, for you. And you'll realize, I'd love to be surrounded in a creative environment. I don't need to be the designer, but I enjoy being around that. And you'll find something that is within that world, right? Like I loved entertainment. Ever as a kid, I loved Hollywood. I loved movies. I loved all this sort of stuff. And I had a chance to work in Hollywood, and I wasn't in front of the camera. I wasn't behind the camera. I mean, I was in a marketing role, and I loved every minute of it. And I was so passionate about it, and I learned so much creatively about that space and about myself. So, I think that some people are born with that talent, and I think that I'd like to think that I've got a slight talent towards that. I don't, whatever. And I think some people are just masterful when they put something together. But I like to think that I have to work for everything. Like it just doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not one of those kids who got the 1600 on my SATs without having to study, and I still didn't get it. But anyways, I think there's just something to that about putting in the hard work and the curiosity to kind of deliver on what it is that your dream is,
and being passionate,
and being very, very passionate about it. Yeah, because heaven knows I tried engineering and I really, really liked it, but I really, really hated it. So that didn't work out. But that was a part that I kept. Like the analytical side of things and how things go together and how they work. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Alex, thank you so much for doing this with us. It's really been a treat, and I'm really, really intrigued now. I'm probably going to give you a call. First, I have to run it by the wife. This is her department, but we are looking to buy a home soon. So
very cool.
I think like you said, sometimes you connect with clients, and I think that I would see myself connecting with you in the same way.
Likewise,
so
it's been great.
Interested. Well, again, thank you so much.
One final thing. Sorry,
Yes.
Alex, your website and Instagram, where can, if everybody wants to contact you for a consult?
Yeah. It's up here. No, it's MrAlexTate.com.
We will put it down here.
Wait, hold on. Andre,
Left or right?
This side, right here.
This side.
Oh, this side. We'll put it somewhere in the screen.
It's around here somewhere. MrAlexTate.com and at MrAlexTate. That's it. We keep it simple.
Perfect.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alex.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
To our viewers, please don't forget to follow, subscribe. Well, follow and subscribe is practically the same thing. Leave us comments. Let us know how we're doing and if you like this and if you found it informational. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I look forward to doing this again soon.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.